And Jay, wonderful to have you in the room. Jay has 25 years of experience in the corporate sector of South Africa, especially retail and FMCG and banking. And Jay, wonderful that we've been engaging with Jay for more than 2 years, into the third year already around this topic. And like you said, Dion, it's one of those things where should have had Jay here a long time ago to come and speak. So Jay, over to you, and take the floor, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Salvan. Thank you, Dion, for the platform. I think, you know, if you look at my profile pic and you look at my video, it will be extremely different. My profile pic is pre-lockdown, and I think my wife actually plays our fridge on level 5 because, you know, that's what we do during lockdown, just running to the fridge. So what I want to do, just trying to load my presentation. Let me just go there quickly. There we go. Can everyone see my presentation?
No, we can't see it, Jay.
Not yet. Okay, let me just go out there. Let's go back to presentation mode. Let's try and share again. Can you? It's available now?
Not yet. Yes, it's coming up. It's coming up.
There you are.
Good. Thank you. So now I just need to make sure I'm in presentation mode here. Cool. So I think today, I just want to confirm, is it in full screen? It's all in full screen? Everyone can see the full screen?
In full screen, Jay. Full screen.
Yes.
Great stuff. So today, as we look at just Dion's topic, and really took us down to understand what does it mean to be practically involved in what we do to support schools and learning as we go along. So Dion, thank you very much for that. That really supports exactly what we want to talk about today. So for me, it's a really privilege to be here and to support the conversation. I really want to thank Partners for Possibility for this opportunity as well. It's been a great journey, and also great just to be part of this. So to Louise, Team Jessica, guys, really honored to be here today. Great. So just going into the presentation, you know, just to think of on the journey that we are today, is that there's a lot of things happening in the digital world, and what does it mean, you know, as we go and transition into that. And for me today will be just to provide some key insight as to how to prepare for that journey as teachers and educators. And it's in my role in corporate, you know, a lot of corporates have started this journey to transition from analog to digital, and many have failed and tried again. So today, as we look at those opportunities, it's definitely, I believe, going to be a great conversation around just taking you guys through as to what to look for and how do we prepare for this today. So let's go to the next slide. So you know, I think when we look at teaching, I was very honored when Salvan actually shared this topic, because to me, in my younger days, when I used to listen to my sister coming home, always mentioning, my teacher said, and to me that was so powerful, just thinking back as to no one could ever overpower that voice of the teacher. My mom tried, but was always adamant. The teacher said, and we had different arguments, but she will go back and say, but my teacher said, and teacher will. And to me, that is the voice that we still continue going to need in the future. Many times we hear that robots are coming to take over the world, will take over our jobs, and to me, definitely not true. There's space, there's opportunity for all of us, but the main thing I think when it comes to education is really the to have that voice, to remain vocal in terms of as we go through this time in education. So, and I think the call out there is how do we continue to lead the conversation? And there's going to be a lot of over content sharing, a lot of information coming, but how do we continue just to lead the conversation and be that voice? So today I want to take us through 5 items, and we're going to talk about the digital landscape. How do we prepare our reality, our future, and how do we continue to lead that conversation? And that will take us to our next slide. And on this slide, you will see on our digital landscape, mobile phone growth in South Africa. We can focus on that slide for a while. From 2014, there was about 9.7 million, and you could see that steep growth, with now forecast for 2023 to be about 26.3. And the question there is basically, where are you on that graph, or were you even further earlier as an adopter? And when I looked at it, I actually just looked back to understand, when did I get my first phone? And based on that question is to understand, when did I enter into this digital era? When did I start with my digital footprint in that space? Looking at the digital population slide as well, we could see that active internet users sitting at 36 million, and then we have those on the actual mobile devices using social media, be close to 22 million. So the stats are really talking to each other. If you look at 2019 mobile users versus the active social media users, you can see there's some correlation there. And this shows that as a country, we are stepping up our digital footprint. And the question that I want to leave here is to, where are we as educators on this journey? Have we stepped in? Have we embraced that change is coming? So I can remember in the early days that, our parents, our grandparents were actually quite afraid even to touch a phone. My uncle today, bless his soul, he actually still uses only the answer button, and for us is, how do we become those agents of change to really support the community, the country, into adopting digital. And the call out on this slide is to say that it's coming, whether you're on it or not, it's coming. And for some shape, you're going to end up being part of it. It's inevitable in that space. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's get here. Sorry, there we go. So this is the Internet Minute. I'm not sure, I'm sure some have seen it already, but if you look at in 2019, 60 seconds on the internet, what does it mean for number of transactions and messages at that time? for 60 seconds on the internet. It's amazing as to what happens in the cyber world, even while we're having this conversation. I mean, standing on this slide for 60 seconds, those are the things that might or are happening in the cyberspace. Um, so what does this mean in the life of a teacher or student? 365 days access to learning, an open classroom, a library that never closes. And that's the reality. And I think how do we shift our thinking to actually shape our world to continue um, leveraging these opportunities? And I think if we look at this graph or the table, um, the slide, you will actually think, okay, I'm on Facebook, I'm maybe on Twitter, but what about the rest? There's such a lot of opportunity in adopting the rest. I think, as some of us have entered into the Google Classroom, Google Suite, but there's so much more. And someone tweeted something, or actually posted something on LinkedIn the other day to say, with all these applications and technology solutions at my exposure online, do I ever need to attend a classroom? And some good examples around it. And that's just the question as to, with technology and educators, how do we blend those worlds to still be the creative force behind these conversations and technology? We could look at what is really coming, in the future, and what the guys are already busy with. But a big thing for me is that, robots don't dream. We still need, although we're going to this fourth industrial revolution, and we need to have a level of readiness, we're still going to need that voice, that say teacher said. Robots don't dream. There's no creativity around it. It's still required for the teacher to actually give us that creativity in the classroom. And so how do we prepare for the change? Looking at all the content being shared, looking at um, sectors be preparing for the fourth industrial revolution. And I think, there's a lot of access to those types of technology. But how do we, as even in the corporate sector and in the public and teaching education sector, prepare for this change? And the challenge is across different industries, different businesses and organizations. So looking at how do we really get going. And I want to actually compare our preparation to, everyone say it's almost like riding a bicycle. You will never forget that experience. So it doesn't matter what comes your way, you will always continue to know how to ride the bicycle. So if you compare those dimensions, you say, when you start, you scoot, and that is really preparing for change. You get onto the bike, and then we need to pedal, and that is that continuous learning that we need to kick off. And then balance, and I think that is where it comes into to reimagine our future, to position ourselves to get through this. And also talking about balance, because there's a lot of content. We can't be everything for everyone. You need to understand, choose a certain lane, and understand, how do I continue to just be the best version of myself within this digital era. And then we look at the right, and how do we create skills to empower. And that is in the classroom. How do we bring the students together, to be successful in their careers, in their future opportunities? How do we support them in that? But I think, in terms of just the video, it's about just the concept. So I'm going to move on, especially for the sake of time. So it speaks about balance as well. I think as we called it out. So So what is key, once we start our journey, getting back on the bike, the one big call I want to make on this slide is a continuous learning component. So although now we can actually start getting onto the bike and we know how to cycle, how to ride, digital, I see that as a different terrain. Maybe you, someone that does road cycling, and now just take this and thinking that digital is off road. It's mountain biking. It's maybe more challenging, but it's a different terrain. Um, so in this space is, to be vulnerable, to understand we don't have the answers, to be open and accessible for learning new things. Um, and being on a new terrain is, how do you become that, get yourself a digital coach? How do you get a mentor to continue on this journey? It's new, it's wide, it's deep. There's a lot of new emerging technologies. It's changing faster than we think. And a lot of new apps and things coming out as well. How do you keep track? So how do you narrow really what you want to understand? Um, on the graphs on the graphs on the right hand side, we'll see it speaks about transitional. So because of the speed of change, we're going to have to look at being in the transitional space as we move through this journey. And maybe today, where you're at in terms of your experience, you sitting at the unconscious competency, which is great. But with digital and the 4IR, it will take you back to different experiences um, as you try to navigate yourself through this digital era. So how do you prepare in terms of this digital horizon? And I think the first one is acknowledge it's time. The time is now. You on this journey. You need to choose exactly. Is it design work that you're going to go into? Is it in terms of cloud engineering, digital or 4D printing, all those type of new technologies coming, robotics. Is that where we're going into, and how do I going to skill myself for that, and to lead others through that as well. I think the second point for me is really about leveraging your strength. We come from a place understanding how to deal with students, how to manage students, how to put programs together, and help students succeed. So let us leverage our strength to actually still continue through that as well. Point three, be intentional, shape your journey, start understanding where is it where I want to start. And then we're going to go into another slide that talks about reimagine. And I think I want to stand still when I talk about be intentional and shape your journey. And the call out there is, should a school or institution have a digital strategy? Should the school have a digital execution plan as to how we're going to navigate the body through this digital era? And that will then talk to us about staff, technology, capability, and skills. Let's go through Reimagine. So this is just a corporate learning ecosystem model. And I just want to bring out the big difference or something that's standing out here is the collaborative learning. And these as part of our digital footprint, if we want to be out there and provide a type of a digital culture, created culture of learning in the digital space, where are we personally on the journey? Do I engage, understand Instagram, Facebook, Google, YouTube, all those other trending technologies that allow us to collaborate. There's WhatsApp, there's different tools happening, but how strong are we? Are we really in that space to understand the culture in this digital era as well? It talks about community of practice, subject matter experts, and co-create, and that is to say that you're not on your own. How do we? And I think the work that Dion and Jessica have done in the community and in the schools is bringing the public and private sector together to build this community of practices where we can together create those opportunities and those platforms to educate and build those skills for the future. Critical skills to empower, and I think this is quite a great opportunity where we now could gather around the students to support them, in this digital era. And I think for us, it's about asking those right questions, those leading questions, those questions that will spark creativity, those questions that will, push the boundaries and look for solutions and resolving critical issues and challenges, creating those solutions for the future. Learn about work created by other students, and that is we now, on a global platform, there's such a lot of resources to understand, how did someone else maybe tackle this problem or this approach. Number 4, how do we work with people around the world, engaging, creating that platform to understand I don't have the answers, but I can network. I can build a network with people, in the same community of practices that will help me to strengthen my position in terms of this digital journey. And self-reflect on their work, and I think this is on the student side as well, is how do we then create that, we call it 360 review, where we get feedback from our colleagues. And same in the student, from a student point of view, today if you're on Instagram, constantly you look at how many likes did I get, what did that one say? So they look at the generation, look at that understanding as to what is the sentiment out there about me. And I think if we bring that into how we shape our learning as well, to understand how do we get students to really have that level of reflection and getting insights from each other, to become strong and to move forward as well. Our reality, I think Dion really spent some great time in taking us through the realities of our journey. And I think just looking at the level where even COVID have shifted us into, if you look at the critical skills gap that we want to close in South Africa, the 2030 strategy that's out there to achieve certain things, and job creation for youth and all those programs. I think COVID has just shifted us probably another 24 months out on those, and obviously we're in a worse state now. And it's actually more challenging to now close and get to close those, to resolve those issues. But I think the big thing is, how do we reflect and take time to reflect on our realities, and how do we get through to create a better opportunity for our students in the future and for ourselves. I think if we look at those graphs that shows that 36% of South Africans are already on this journey, how do we strengthen those 36% to now reach out to those that's marginalized, that doesn't have access to connectivity, that need that support to actually get onto this journey. And the other questions around access to technology and connectivity, definitely key. And Dion, thanks for the practical examples as to how we can overcome those as well. Our future, yep, I think we need to fly. We need to take on those difficult terrains to get through. and stay on the bike, keep on pedaling, scooting. You might fall off, get back on, and keep going. Because things will change. And what we're going to have in our classrooms, we're going to have digital natives in our classrooms. They want to have a different approach, and I think they like that constant connectivity. um, they have a short span of attention because things must flash by. They'll grab it. They'll take what they need to move to the next thing. That's great. From a spelling, I think my wife still battles with me sometimes when I send a text. But these are the things that we're going to have to deal with. Going into the internet first for information, that's going to happen. How do we deal with that? How do we still maintain our voice to give this guidance and not let Google become the teacher, but we remain as a position as having that voice? And I think if you look at the digital native, if from a teaching point of view, as where we are, for those that's still getting into this digital space, we are called the digital immigrants. Our children are growing up with their phones in their hands, with their iPads, laptops, etc. But we need to immigrate. And when someone immigrates, there's a lot of research to understand where we're going to grow, where we're going to spend time, what's the support structure, when we immigrate. And that's exactly the same level of thinking one needs to have as a digital immigrant. And being a digital immigrant, that also need to lead a conversation for the digital native. And that is just something I want to leave with you today, to understand, unpack your personal journey into this digital era. As I close out, want to continue just to inspire you to lead a conversation. I think I started the presentation by saying, teacher said, that still be that voice, that authoritative voice that will, even in the digital era, where students will turn to the teacher to ask, what do you think? Our opinion still counts. And to do that, we need to carve out our personal journey to become and to remain that voice, but also to be continually digital active and digital champions in this age. So how do we lead this conversation? Pragmatic approach, remain confident, purpose-led, grit in terms of our decision, our strategy, our journey. Stick to it. I think there's going to be a lot of change. Doesn't mean one needs to adopt it. I think when phones came out, not everybody downloaded all the apps. You only downloaded what you needed at that time, and that made it be continue our approach in that. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to call out that, I see there's about 90 people around the table today, virtual table. And, there's a lot of anxiety when it comes to preparing for change. And I want to tell you that you got this. It's been a great journey through even the analog age, different revolutions. And I believe that as we shape ourselves and position ourselves for the digital era, we will still strive and be resilient as we move through it. So thank you very much for this opportunity.